Welcome back to Motion 24, the only channel that goes deeper, digs harder, and uncovers the stories the main show doesn't want you to see. What if everything we thought we knew was a lie? A jaw-dropping revelation is sending shockwaves through the little people. Big world universe. And what we have uncovered goes far beyond reality TV drama. This is a tale of alleged corporate sabotage, whispered betrayals, and a looming legal battle that could reshape the destiny of Roloff Farms forever. What's unfolding behind the scenes feels less like a family disagreement and more like the plot of a high-stakes thriller. According to insiders, a stunning showdown is brewing. Amy Roloff is preparing to go head-to-head with Matt Roloff and Caryn Chandler in what sources are calling a fight for the heart and heritage of the farm. At the center of this storm is a massive $4 million lawsuit and a courtroom moment so intense that witnesses claim Amy's attorney left Caryn Chandler completely shattered under cross-examination. But this story isn't just about land, money, or contracts. It's about loyalty, legacy, and a behind-the-scenes scheme that allegedly aimed to push Amy out of the picture entirely. What began as quiet tension has erupted into a dramatic, farm-shaking conflict that insiders say could change everything the Roloff family has built. And before we break down the secret meetings, the rumored takeover plot, and the explosive testimony that reportedly stunned everyone in the courtroom, I need you to do one thing. Hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and smash that like, because what we're about to reveal is the kind of exclusive, deep dive coverage you won't find anywhere else. This story has been simmering beneath the surface for months, and Motion 24 is pulling the curtain back right now. Let's get right into the heart of this. To understand the gravity of this lawsuit, we have to rewind the clock a bit. For years, viewers have watched the slow, painful dissolution of Matt and Amy's partnership in Roloff Farms. We saw the arguments, the tension over the buyout of the north side of the property, and the ultimate sale. But what we didn't see, what was happening behind the cameras, is the subject of this entire legal firestorm. According to insider reports, the battle wasn't over when Amy sold her half of the land. In fact, that was just the beginning. Amy, as a co-founder, still retained a significant stake in the business entity itself, the Roloff Farms LLC. This entity is more than just land and barns. It's the brand, the intellectual property, the goodwill built over decades of television fame, and the highly profitable pumpkin patch season. It's a multi-million-dollar enterprise, and Amy still owns a piece of that lucrative pie. Our informants tell us that this was one of the main issues that caused friction between Matt and Caryn. Their goal was supposedly to get total control, but Amy's remaining shares acted as a constant roadblock. They envisioned a fresh start, a time when the farm belonged just to them, with Caryn established as more than just Matt's business partner. She would have a pivotal role in running the company. They wished they could cut off all legal ties with Amy's ownership, which served as a continual reminder of the past. Amy, however, was aware of the worth of her shares and was unwilling to part with them for pennies on the dollar. According to Amy's lawsuit, this led to the development of a new, more aggressive, and obviously unlawful tactic. At this point, the plot delves into the murky waters of corporate law. A new parent corporation was founded by Matt with substantial influence and direct participation from Caryn, according to legal documents that have been presented to us by persons with access to the case file. The name of this company was Roloff Holdings Incorporated. With a single merciless goal in mind, this new organization set out to acquire all of Roloff Farms' assets. The lawsuit detailed the initial plan, which was to merge Roloff Farms LLC with its valuable assets into Roloff Holdings Incorporated. The previous business would be reduced to a mere shell if this were to happen. They would be able to use that as leverage to kick Amy out afterward. Now that their new company structure was set up, Matt and Caryn took action. They made an offer to Amy to purchase her remaining shares in the original limited liability company. The lawsuit claims that the asking price was a startling $500,000. That is an incredibly low figure, as anyone who has been following Roloff Farms' progress can attest. Not to consider the value of the brand name, goods, and media licensing, the annual earnings from pumpkin season alone is reportedly in the millions. It was a lowball offer meant to be rejected, offering $500,000 for a basic interest in that empire, according to Amy's lawyers. It was no surprise that Amy turned it down. In her mind, the value of her stock was about to skyrocket. From tending to the pumpkin field to keeping the books in order, she had dedicated 30 years of her life to creating that business. She would not be disregarded or her legacy sold off for a pittance. It was supposedly on her denial that Matt and Caryn were banking. Her no set in motion their last and most extreme strategy, the hostile squeeze-out merger. Now, let's simplify the complicated legal approach of a squeeze-out merger. It's a tactic that majority shareholders might occasionally employ to forcibly buy the shares of minority shareholders. In essence, the merger between the old Roloff Farms LLC and the new Roloff Holdings Incorporated, which Matt and Matt owned, would begin. In order to finalize the merger, they would have to cancel Amy's shares in the previous firm and compensate her in cash for them, the same $500,000 that she had just turned down. Nothing would change if she declined the money. Her shares would be formally dissolved as a result of the merger's completion and the dissolution of the former firm. She would end up with a check she didn't want and be totally cut off from the company she helped start. A corporate execution is how Amy describes it in her lawsuit. Her own history was being wiped clean of her. However, a crucial error in judgment was made by Matt and Caryn. Amy was undervalued by them. Angry wasn't enough. She retained legal representation. Legal insiders in Portland have characterized Ms. Albright as one of the most fearsome corporate litigators in the city. She is recognized for her keen intellect and unyielding, no-nonsense approach in court. She was not just any lawyer, though. She was hired by her. Amy's retaliation was strong and quick. She sued Matt, Caryn, and their new company, Roloff Holdings Incorporated, in a huge lawsuit. Serious allegations of constructive fraud, minority shareholder oppression, and breach of fiduciary duty were leveled. The lawsuit asserted that, as the original LLC's managing partners, Matt and Caryn were obligated to prioritize Amy's welfare and refrain from engaging in any form of conspiration against her. They were accused of intentionally undervaluing the company and abusing their position to benefit themselves while she was taken advantage of. Amy also declined their offer of $500,000. Her team of forensic accountants and business evaluators had determined that her shares were indeed worth an astounding $4 million, and she was demanding this amount. The family's closest associates were rocked to their core by the announcement of this lawsuit. Everything that had been simmering in the family feud was about to explode into a full-blown civil trial complete with discovery, depositions, and the possibility that every secret would be revealed. Legal action was about to reveal Matt and Caryn's corporate maneuver, which they probably thought was foolproof, and it may bankrupt their new venture before it ever started. According to those in the know, Amy's lawyers found a gold mine during the discovery period that before trial. Financial data, emails, and texts were all subpoenaed. It was supposedly a paper trail that detailed the whole operation that they uncovered. The crucial piece of evidence, the meat and potatoes of Amy's case, centered on the value of the company. A professional estimate of the whole value of the business was required by their bank when Matt and Caryn were establishing up Roloff Holdings Incorporated, as Amy's lawyers found out. In order to provide funding for the new company, the bank arranged for 3 separate approved business evaluations. Matt and Caryn supposedly withheld these bombshell critiques from Amy. They factored in the worth of the Little People, Big World brand, the revenue flow from pumpkin season, the merchandising contracts, the tourism appeal, and the future income potential, among other things. Consistent findings were obtained. With a combined valuation of the company between $10 to $12 million, Amy's minority interest was right in the $5 million ballpark when she filed her lawsuit. This proved it all. Matt and Caryn's complete awareness of the company's genuine value was demonstrated by this. So how did they arrive at an offer of $500,000? At this point, Caryn Chandler's involvement in the case takes center stage. Claiming to be the acting farm manager, Caryn allegedly went ahead and obtained a fourth appraisal on her own. This one came from a tiny local firm named West Coast Valuations, not a big independent firm. Furthermore, this evaluation differed significantly from the others. It paid zero attention to the public sentiment, the media's rights, or the worth of the brand. The appraisal treated Roloff Farms like any other non-public agricultural company, treating it as nothing more than a piece of land with a few structures on it. A total firm valuation of slightly over $1 million was determined using that severely defective process, which neatly placed Amy's share value around $500,000 in the ballpark. According to the lawsuit, this evaluation was commissioned with the intention of producing a falsely lowball figure to validate the squeeze-out. At long last, the trial began. Reports indicated that the courtroom was quite nerve-wracking. With their expensive corporate attorneys by their sides, Matt and Caryn sat on one side, exuding confidence. Their belief that this was a minor disagreement between businesses and the validity of their corporate documents led them to believe otherwise. Amy, who looked anxious but determined, sat on the opposite side of the table with her son Chris for support. Ms. Albright, her lawyer, exhibited a model of composed, lethal concentration. Over the course of many days, the trial progressed. Witnesses from the financial sector attested to the farm's enormous profit margin. The strength of the LPBW name was attested by the testimony of eyewitnesses. In order to prove to the jury that Roloff Farms was more than simply some dirt, Amy's team painstakingly assembled evidence piece by piece. But the cross-examination of Chandler was the one crucial moment that the entire case would depend on, as was known to everyone in that courtroom. She presented herself as the company manager, the one who would simplify processes. Amy's legal team was prepared to assert that their client was not just trying to streamline the company operations, but was actually planning a fraudulent takeover. Answering her own lawyer's questions, Caryn first seemed calm and even pleased when she went on the stand. She gave the impression that she was a hard-working manager who would spare no effort to ensure the farm's survival and improve its operations for Matt. She made it seem like becoming Roloff Holdings Incorporated was just another routine and essential step for the company. She gave the impression that she was in charge of every situation. After then, Ms. Albright was called upon. As she drew near the witness stand, Amy's attorney's posture shifted from one of cautious observation to that of an approaching predator. She started out by asking Caryn some basic questions to get to the bottom of things and make her feel comfortable. Miss Chandler, you have been in a romantic relationship with Mr. Roloff for several years, correct? And Caryn grinned. Yes, that's right. And during the period in question, you were also acting as the manager of Roloff Farms LLC, weren't you? Yes, Caryn happily stated. I was helping Matt streamline the business. A term that lingered in the air was streamline, which Ms. Albright repeated. What an intriguing word choice. Miss Chandler, when the decision was made to incorporate Roloff Holdings Incorporated, were you the acting manager of Roloff Farms LLC? In agreement, Caryn gave a subtle nod. Yes, I was. And you were intimately involved in the process of transferring the assets from the old company to the new one? I was involved, that's true. It was somewhat laborious. Ms. Albright nodded subtly, hardly audible. In my opinion, it was. Now let's discuss that project. You stated in your testimony that you aimed to streamline the company. It seems more like you wanted to get rid of a spouse, doesn't it? A smirk crept onto Caryn's face. I don't know what you mean. Oh, I believe you do, Ms. Albright remarked, her voice icy and icy cold. A bound document was taken up by her as she strode over to the evidence table. It was set down in front of Caryn at her side. Did you or did you not commission this appraisal from a company called West Coast Valuations? With a sudden spark of awareness, Caryn gazed at the document. Yes, that was to get a fair market price for the buyout. A fair market price? The voice of Ms. Albright resounded with a hint of incredulity. Just over $1 million was the whole value of the Roloff Farms brand and business according to this appraisal. Do you comprehend that? It's what the professional appraiser determined, Caryn remarked, her voice rising to escalation. A professional? With her back to the jury, Ms. Albright spoke. I'd like to speak with you about this specific expert. It is correct that Mr. David Peters owns and operates West Coast Valuations, isn't it, Miss Chandler? Caryn paused. I believe that's his name, yes. With deliberate strides, Ms. Albright approached the witness box. And isn't it also true, Miss Chandler, that David Peters is your brother-in-law? The entire courtroom erupted in gasps. Incredulous, the jury members straightened themselves in their chairs. Caryn's complexion turned pale and then crimson. Her apparent anxiety was palpable. Her voice trailed off as she described him as a well-regarded expert in his industry, her composure crumbling away. A respected professional. A rising tide of righteous wrath characterized Ms. Albright's voice. Someone who treated a multi-million-dollar global media brand and a top Oregon tourist attraction like a piece of undeveloped land with no compassion. Someone whose expert judgment occurred to give the same basis for your predatory $500,000 offer, and who also happens to be a member of your own family. While her lawyer did nothing but sit and observe, Caryn stared helplessly at him, unable to utter a word. Ms. Albright, however, was far from done. 3 further, substantially thicker bound documents were retrieved by her from the evidence table. Returning to the witness stand, she carefully placed each one on the ledge before one. In the otherwise quiet courtroom, the thump of each one reverberated. These 3 evaluations are here, Miss Chandler, those that the bank had commissioned. A Deloitte estimate puts the firm's worth at $11.2 million. According to this KPMG report, the value is $10.5 million. According to a leading Oregon appraisal company, the property is valued $12 million. This squeeze-out involved just you as the negotiator. For a while, you filled in as manager. You kept these evaluations on hand, didn't you? And you never gave them to Amy Roloff, right? Did you not even inform her that they existed? A scary expression crossed Caryn's face as she beheld the stack of papers. She looked all over the room, avoiding eye contact with anyone. A whispered, "I was acting on Matt's behalf," was all she could muster. "I was trying to get the best deal for the new company." Leaning in, Ms. Albright let her voice sink to a low, threatening growl. The phrase "best deal"? Or is it a fake? Is it your intention for this jury to assume that it was only coincidental that you presented your partner with only one appraisal, your brother-in-law's, that was 10 times worse than any of the others? On purpose, you concealed the actual evaluations. You attempted to defraud your partner of millions of dollars by using an inflated, biased appraisal that was done by a family member, so that you and Mr. Roloff could have complete control of the firm she helped build. You did this to remove her from it. That isn't professional, Miss Chandler. It's all part of a plot. On her heel, she pivoted to confront the judge. No further questions, Your Honor. Shock and utter quiet filled the courtroom. Sitting on the witness stand, Chandler felt absolutely exposed and humiliated. She had a ruined witness statement. She appeared as an accomplice in a fraud plan as she left the courtroom, having entered as an assured company manager. By virtue of that one devastating cross-examination, Amy Roloff's attorney had essentially won the war. It was all there in the expressions on the faces of the jurors. Their expressions of utter disdain were directed towards Caryn. At the defense table, Matt Roloff sat with a pale face, allegedly looked at Caryn as if she were a new person in his life. the mastermind behind the catastrophe that was now playing out before his eyes. They, the defense, attempted a comeback. After that, Matt stepped up to the stand in an effort to limit the damage. He attempted to paint a picture of a straightforward commercial negotiation in which they had proposed an initial pricing and the whole thing as a mistake. It was Caryn's job to manage the appraisals, he said, so he wasn't involved in the details. He put on an act of being the far-sighted visionary who was too preoccupied with his initiatives to waste time on paperwork. But Ms. Albright was just as ruthless in dismantling his testimony. "Mr. Roloff," she started, "are you requesting that this court accept one of two interpretations? You either conspired to defraud your ex-wife and 30-year business partner, or you're so bad at business that you let your girlfriend use her brother-in-law to fake a valuation for a multi-million-dollar merger that you didn't even know about. Mr. Roloff, which one is it? Would you rather be called a stupid or a crook?" Matt was at a loss for words. His every move was doomed to failure. He said something about having faith in his squad, but by then it was too late. Matt and Caryn's planned and malevolent attempt to steal Amy's legacy was plainly shown to the jury. There was little substance to the closing arguments. Ms. Albright gave a moving and powerful description, describing Amy as the matriarch of the Roloff Farms empire. She had devoted her life to the land, but the two individuals she should have trusted the most betrayed her and left her devastated. In their final argument, the defense made a feeble and technical effort to claim that they had complied with company law in letter form, even if their intentions were completely corrupt. Jurors were sent to deliberate following the conclusion of the prosecution's case. They didn't require much time, though. The deliberation was reportedly the shortest for a civil case of this magnitude in the court's recent history, according to reports from inside the courthouse. They had decided everything in a matter of hours. An intolerable amount of anxiety pervaded the courtroom as the jury re-entered. Amy prayed with her eyes closed while she held Chris' hand. Caryn and Matt sat rigidly, their gaze fixed ahead. The judge received the verdict from the bailiff, who in turn received it from the foreman. Initially expressionless, the judge's face contorted into a deep scowl as he perused the report's conclusions. Instead of fixing his gaze on the jurors, he met Matt and Caryn's. Amy Roloff was entirely and totally vindicated by what transpired thereafter, which was more than simply a court decision. The judge's voice boomed through the empty courtroom as he started to speak. "Before I read the jury's verdict, which I fully endorse, this court feels compelled to comment on the facts presented in this case." Looking intently at the accused, he halted. "Many commercial disagreements have been presided over by me. I have witnessed partners who have had a nasty breakup, arguments, and difficult negotiations. This is the most overt and deliberate display of bad faith that I have witnessed in my 20 years of service on this bench." He gave himself time for the words to take hold. A commercial negotiation was not what this was. An illegal and aggressive scheme to swindle a founding partner was being considered. Defendants Mr. Roloff and Ms. Chandler formed a new corporation to strip Ms. Roloff of her equity, rather than for lawful business reasons. To justify a lowball, forceful buyout, they committed what the law calls constructive fraud by concealing legitimate multi-million-dollar evaluations and willfully presenting a phony valuation from a prejudiced and conflicted family member. I am astounded by the audacity of this plan. After that, the judge looked across at Amy. There are legal safeguards in place to prevent the majority from abusing its power, and Ms. Roloff was a minority shareholder. This situation exemplifies the classic persecution of minority shareholders. This court will not uphold such a heinous and cruel act. The verdict form was taken up by him. On the matter of the lawsuit, this court finds entirely in favor of the plaintiff, Miss Amy Roloff. Tears of relief streamed down Amy's face as she was overwhelmed with emotion. The judge was still not through. A hostile merger has been terminated. Mr. Roloff and Miss Chandler were found to have acted maliciously. The court has determined that Miss Roloff's shares are worth $4 million and has ordered Roloff Holdings Incorporated to pay her that amount. The hammer, however, had not yet fallen. With a severe and unyielding tone, the judge went on. Furthermore, this court considers that basic restitution is insufficient because of the severe fraud and the determination of malevolent purpose. Sending a message is essential, so I'm giving Miss Roloff an extra $1 million in punitive damages, which Mr. Matt Roloff and Miss Caryn Chandler will have to pay out of their own pockets. The $5 million total verdict was a devastating blow. In addition to the whole $4 million, Amy Roloff also received an additional $1 million to make Matt and Caryn pay for their dishonesty. For the newly formed Roloff Holdings Incorporated, the fallout was swift and catastrophic. It was necessary for Matt and Caryn to incur enormous debt in order to settle the $5 million judgment. They had to use all of their equity in the farm and take out a mortgage on it. Their ambitious scheme to usher in a more efficient and lucrative age for the farm was doomed from the get-go. Right from the outset, the new company was in a precarious financial position due to the enormous debt that had been accrued as a result of their previous unsuccessful venture. Amy Roloff was freed, exonerated, and walked out of that courtroom with a multi-millionaire fortune. The result was a hollowed-out business and the stain of a financial disaster that Matt and Caryn had brought upon themselves. The queen had successfully guarded her castle and made off with the king's treasure after the hostile takeover failed. With this unexpected development, the alliance that began it all has come to an explosive conclusion, and Roloff Farm's future is now in jeopardy. Let's dive into the seismic aftermath of this shocking verdict. A quake that has devastated the Roloff family and cast doubt on the future of their famous farm, rather than only shaking the courtroom. So far, we have covered the what, the storyline, the trial, and the verdict. The so what will be our focus now. According to individuals within the Roloff circle, the $5 million verdict has led to a disastrous downward spiral of financial collapse, personal treachery, and a family civil war that has been waged in stony silences and slammed doors rather than in a courtroom. Put yourself in the shoes of the judge right after the gavel dropped. Amy Roloff sobs into Chris Marek's shoulder as they stand side by side on one side of the aisle. Rumor has it that these were not happy tears, but rather deeply felt, devastating relief and vindication. She had experienced years of exclusion, rejection, and disdain at the hands of the company she had helped build. The value of her was affirmed, and the conduct of the two individuals who had attempted to erase her were condemned in this court judgment, which was about more than simply the money. She felt like she could finally breathe, said an Amy confidant who recalled how she felt that day. A burden of being made to feel less than in the company for 30 years seems to have been lifted. The court stared Matt and Caryn down and labeled their behavior as malicious fraud. Putting the money aside, Chris and her children, who were supposedly completely behind her, were there for her modest and private celebration that evening. Think about it from the opposite side of the bench. As the judge's remarks lingered like a poisonous cloud, Matt Roloff and Caryn Chandler sat still. The pinnacle of humiliation was being compelled to personally pay $1 million in punitive damages. Their conduct were deemed morally and ethically reprehensible, going beyond a mere commercial error, according to the legal declaration. As they left the courtroom, witnesses said there was a spooky quiet. There were no encouraging looks or words of consolation. Reportedly, Matt, who is usually quite outgoing and good at finding solutions, was completely silent and somber. After exuding such self-assurance prior to her cross-examination, Caryn now appeared wholly defeated. One insider put it like way, an hour of the loudest silence you've ever heard during the drive back to the farm. The accusation supposedly started nearly right away. According to insiders, Matt was enraged by the outcome as well as the plan's obvious lack of care. He had placed his faith in Caryn's financial skills, but her scheme had backfired in the most embarrassing and costly way possible. using her own brother-in-law as the appraiser was a terrible, inexperienced judgment that Ms. Albright, a brilliant lawyer, had taken full advantage of. "How could you be so stupid?" was supposedly the question that reverberated throughout the farmhouse in the days that followed. The self-proclaimed business visionary Matt supposedly laid the blame at Caryn's feet after she made him look foolish. On the other side, Caryn felt completely scapegoated. According to our sources, she believed she was merely fulfilling Matt's desire to remove Amy from the situation while minimizing financial investment. As she had previously stated, she was testifying on behalf of Matt. However, when the plot backfired, she found herself exposed and humiliated on the witness stand, with Matt looking on in silence. Reportedly, the unfortunate outcome of this litigation caused a profound and enduring rift in their relationship, dissolving their formerly united front and replacing it with an undercurrent of blame and animosity. Despite taking over the farm, they were ensnared by a $5 million debt and ultimately defeated in the conflict. The monetary ramifications of that debt are enormous, and they provide important hidden context to everything that viewers have witnessed on the show recently. So let's talk about it. Even the Roloffs can't simply write a check for a $5 million judgment. In order to comply with the court's decision, Matt and Caryn were forced to obtain a large loan for Roloff Holdings Incorporated from a bank. This necessitated making full use of the farm's resources. All of the land, all of the structures, the infamous pirate ship, the entire western town, everything was pledged as security. They almost had to put their aspirations on the line in order to fund their idea. The farm's operations have been severely impacted by this. Consider, the farm no longer invests, adds attractions, or saves a significant chunk of its yearly income, particularly the enormous gains from pumpkin season. Rather, it is sent straight to the bank to pay off this enormous debt. A lot is clarified. It clarifies the frenzied efforts to sell the massive mansion and the northern half of the property. We determined that it wasn't merely Matt's desire to shrink, rather, it was an urgent requirement for a substantial influx of funds to settle the debt and liberate some wealth. They would have been under 10 times as much financial strain had that deal fallen through. Additionally, this viewpoint clarifies the difficult discussions with their own offspring. It became clear that Matt was no longer negotiating based on strength or family legacy when Jeremy and Zach showed interest in purchasing a section of the farm. He bargained with the mentality of a man deeply in debt. Providing his sons with a family discount was out of his financial reach. For the bank to be satisfied, he had to get top dollar for the entire plot of land. When seen through the prism of this clandestine $5 million judgment, the prices he quoted, which appeared astronomical to the lads and the viewers, make complete sense. He wasn't seeking to sell a legacy so much as an asset to pay off a huge debt. The instant he and Caryn made the decision to attempt to deceive the first generation, he probably gave up on his ideal of the farm passing to the next. More than simply financial deals are at the root of the family split. A disastrous test of devotion, this litigation has had far-reaching consequences. According to rumors, this was the turning moment for Zach and Tori. According to an insider, Zach felt the lawsuit was an attempt to blackmail his mother. His father's claimed readiness to team up with Caryn in an effort to bankrupt Amy supposedly repulsed him. The focus was on character rather than business. As a direct result of this event, they eventually moved to Washington and became estranged from Matt and Caryn. They weren't merely relocating to accommodate a larger home. Rather, they were consciously separating themselves from a toxic and intolerable circumstance by traversing an entire state. Clearly, they took a stand, and that stand was Team Amy. Jeremy and Audrey's case is trickier, but sources say they, too, learned a lot from the battle. Each of them had their own vision for the future, a life built on a plot of Roloff farms. Their father apparently revealed a new side to them when the specifics of the litigation became public knowledge within the family. They witnessed a man who was prepared to turn his family into pawns in his vicious corporate campaign. How could they possibly do business with him knowing he would be fair to them? Negotiations to purchase the farm broke down due to a basic lack of confidence, not merely over money. The case demonstrated to them that for Matt, no matter the stakes, even family could be involved in business. We return to Caryn Chandler at this point. Even before this litigation, she had established herself as an integral element of the partnership, the astute manager whose expertise was enabling Matt to tap into the farm's untapped potential. However, the trial completely destroyed that reputation. She was revealed not to be a brilliant businesswoman, but rather the plotter behind a botched plan who erred by enlisting the help of her own relatives. Her reputation took a nosedive within the family. She would always be known as the woman who attempted to deceive their mother in the eyes of the children. Her once realized ambition of succeeding the Roloff matriarch and leading a harmonious blended family on the farm was now nothing more than a pipe dream. Rather, she assumed a pivotal role in the family's collapse, representing the schism that had split them apart. Roloff Farm's own long-term viability is currently in a precarious position. With such a mountain of debt, any company is asking for trouble. It would only take 1 or 2 poor pumpkin seasons, a decline in tourism, or any unforeseen large expense to put them in danger of bankruptcy. This analysis portrays the once cherished farm as a debt-ridden asset precariously poised, representing a loss of both family and whimsical creativity. There is a tremendous amount of pressure on Matt to produce income. The payment to the bank must be considered in every decision. This might be the reason behind the increasing number of paid attractions, the rise in costs, and the overall corporate vibe at the farm lately. What started as a lighthearted family activity has turned into a life-or-death fight for funding. Where does Amy stand? She was able to escape with $5 million without a hitch. With Chris by her side, she has a new life, stable finances, and the upper hand morally. She has emerged victorious from this whole ordeal in more ways than one. But according to sources, it's a bittersweet victory. The war was won, but her family life was shattered. Her children are far from their father, and the farm she dedicated her life to has become a site of sad memories, governed by those who betrayed her. The war was never her choice, but she is now stuck fighting it and dealing with its aftermath. Even from the winning side, the great irony here is that in their ruthless attempt to seize total control and build a new future for Roloff Farms, Matt and Caryn may have signed its death warrant. Their greed and deception led to a judgment that has financially crippled the very empire they were trying to conquer. They wanted to squeeze Amy out, but they ended up squeezing the life out of their own business. The legacy of Roloff Farms is now permanently tainted. It's no longer just a story about a little family with big dreams. It's a cautionary tale about how greed, betrayal, and a hostile takeover can burn a 30-year legacy to the ground. The big house sits empty, the kids are gone, and a mountain of debt looms over the pumpkin patch. And it all traces back to a secret courtroom showdown, a devastating cross-examination, and a judge's verdict that finally brought the truth to light. The question that hangs over everything now is not who will inherit the farm, but whether there will be anything left to inherit at all. More update. Matt Roloff spills it all, says goodbye to NDA, and Amy Roloff admits pain of Matt and Caryn relationship. Roloff shocks with outrageous new offer. What is it? And Matt and Amy Roloff lock horns in sneak peek. I will explain everything. Matt Roloff, star of Little People, Big World, recently revealed everything following the season 25 conclusion on TLC. What juicy details, then, did Matt reveal? TLC viewers had more questions than answers after the Little People Big World season 25 finale. In many ways, the season 25 conclusion seemed like the series final, even if it wasn't. A major issue among fans is where the franchise will go after Zach and Tori Roloff's final scenes in the novels. Amy Roloff recently responded to several inquiries from fans about the franchise's future. Fans of Little People, Big World also didn't get any clear answers from that. They aren't filming for TLC right now, according to Amy Roloff, but she also kept the door open, stating that the potential remains. In light of the ambiguity and unresolved questions, Matt Roloff just posted a lengthy update on social media. He addressed some of the most pressing queries raised by Little People, Big World fans in it. What was it that Matt Roloff revealed? Matt Roloff continued by discussing the show's previous near cancellation. For the whole family, recording all of those episodes was a grind. This occurred around the time when it was thought that Season 6 would be the final season. Fans of Little People Big World are aware that they went much beyond that, continuing through Season 25. According to Matt Roloff, this accounts for a significant portion of TLC's hesitation to formally declare the show's end. In the past, when the Roloff family was about to leave, they negotiated new conditions and other specials to keep the train going. In essence, this wait-and-see scenario is nothing new to them. It makes sense, then, that nobody is acting hastily right now. Matt Roloff even remembers the moment the TLC PR department announced in a press release that Season 6 of Little People, Big World would be the final and that the show will be canceled. That wasn't the case, and TLC probably doesn't want to make any news too soon in order to prevent a repeat of that disaster. According to Matt Roloff, connections are at the core of Little People, Big World. He even talked about the family conflicts around Roloff Farms. Even if people hate that plot, Matt claimed that when that drama is present, the better the ratings do. Regarding the Little People Big World franchise's future, Matt stated, "At this time, nobody really knows. I feel very content and satisfied with the run of the shows and the journey we shared with you all. I do think that TLC did a nice job on the last Tuesday season finale episode, hedging their bets and putting a nice button on the show, and where the family members that still participate stands." Matt added, providing some insight into why the season 25 finale seemed like a series finale. "I believe there is a consensus that they concluded the Roloff LPB," continued Matt Roloff. "Because of how fantastic the Crazy Train saga is, many of you thought it was the series finale." Though, like Amy Roloff, Matt Roloff gave extensive insight into the Little People Big World method and more. Things are presently in a state of uncertainty, while TLC executives make decisions about their future. TLC addressed most of their concerns by wrapping up a lot of loose ends. As Matt Roloff stated, and as many fans believe, should the season 25 final turn out to be a series final. Amy Roloff admits pain of Matt and Caryn relationship. The Little People, Big World star Amy Roloff may have moved on with Chris Marek, but Matt Roloff is still hurting. Since Matt officially announced his engagement to Caryn Chandler, this is particularly true. What is Amy's true attitude about the situation? Matt and Amy Roloff are bound to irritate one another. If Little People, Big World fans are trying to set up a campaign right now, they might notice this. Amy and Matt still bicker after all these years, even though they've moved on with other people. There might be a lot of people doing different things when there are too many people in charge. Amy and Matt are control freaks who want to be in charge of everything. Their connection is so powerful that it's easy to lose track of time when they're together. After 28 years of marriage, having 4 children together, and building a life together, it's hard to truly separate from someone. Everyone from Amy and Chris to Matt and Caryn Chandler loves to visit Roloff Farms. Furthermore, Amy Roloff carries on Matt Roloff's surname, and their relationship will be continued through their offspring and grandchildren. Things are still kind of awkward between Amy Roloff and her ex-husband, according to recent scenes from Little People, Big World. "I don't need to hear any personal details about Matt and Caryn's relationship or their engagement," said Amy. "It was not necessary to hold on to any drama," she stressed. In previous Little People Big World scenarios, There was a lot of criticism around the size difference between Amy and Caryn Chandler's engagement rings. She did her best to brush it off, but it was obvious that this irritated her little. Whatever happens, Amy Roloff claims she will never forget her time with Matt Roloff. "Until the day I die, it will always have an impact," said Amy. Her advice was to do the best you can. It broke Amy's heart that Matt had turned their Roloff Farms house into an heirloom. This house was where they brought up their children. She thinks it would be better if a family lived there instead of tourists. Despite Amy's claims that she tries to be cordial with Caryn Chandler, many viewers of Little People, Big World perceive resentment and enmity between the two. Even if Amy doesn't like it, she can't escape the bond that Matt has created between her and Caryn Chandler. "No matter what happens, Amy and I will always have Matt in common," Caryn recently noted. "We've both been with Matt forever." What is the LPBW Roloff's outrageous new offer? Like any other business, Little People Big World is a constant source of revenue for the Roloff family. According to recent rumors, one of the Roloff family members is pushing a very pricey service. Then please explain it. As those who have watched Little People Big World for a long time know, being affiliated with the show opens doors to enormous cash opportunities. This is true regardless of whether a family member is no longer involved with the TLC production. Onlookers have seen Tori, drawing on the success of Little People Big World, Zach Roloff, and his new podcast Raising Heights have managed to attract a sizable audience. Even long-lost cast members have benefited, using it to launch lucrative businesses. So, even after all this time, Little People Big World is still a successful business. An innovative new service is being promoted by Isabel Roloff, a member of the Roloff family, according to recent news sources. In her most recent statement, she says that she is now accepting requests for soul portraits from interested parties. Furthermore, her new service has an outrageous price tag of $222 per commission. As stated by Irish soul artist, soul images are commonly sought after for spiritual guidance, commemoration of life events, and contact with loved ones who have passed on. Soul paintings have helped many people through difficult career changes and bring greater wealth into their life. On many points, this lines up with what Jacob and Isabel Roloff believe. Whether or not anyone purchases a soul portrait from Isabel is something to watch with interest. Little People Big World supporters were not pleased with Isabel Roloff's latest money grab, even though she usually does this with her updates. An admirer of Little People Big World noted that, although it's great that followers aren't criticizing her, she knows she isn't an artist. Since her motivation is purely financial, no one should be afraid to call her out on her antics. Real artists find her behavior demeaning. As an artist, she is unfazed by anything. She just gets haughty and starts listing all the money she's gotten recently to defend her sales practices. I don't know any imaginative individual that might pull that off. The artist is terrible, according to another commenter. Why on earth would a kindergartner pay $300 for a painting or whatever? This is coming from someone who is creative themselves and who would never criticize the work of others. Nobody seems to be looking at her work. You can buy my soul for $400. LPBW Matt and Amy Roloff lock horns in sneak peek. The trailers for Little People Big World reveal that Amy and Matt Roloff grow heated during some scenes. Although they have gone on with other people, the ex-partners are still friendly and involved in each other's lives, yet it is obvious that they irritate one another. TLC's Little People Big World Season 25 is now airing. For viewers, this is a fantastic chance to stay up to date on all the happenings on Roloff Farms and beyond. Because it was just revealed that Tori and Zach Roloff will not be returning for any more episodes, this season is especially bittersweet. Fans of Little People Big World may see what Matt Roloff did with the part of Roloff Farms that he first listed for sale. Matt Roloff made the decision to convert that portion of the farm, which included the former Roloff family house, into a short-term rental property after refusing to sell to his sons or an outside buyer. Matt made a wise business decision thus far, and it is undoubtedly paying off. What begins as a cooperative effort for a worthy cause becomes a huge issue for Amy and Matt Roloff in the previews for the upcoming episode of Little People, Big World. Things like this help to explain why the two of them didn't make a good partnership and why they finally got divorced and moved on to other people. Once more, Amy and Matt Roloff team together for a charitable function. They do meet together for a good reason, but they quickly start to irritate one another. It's already problematic that everyone has agreed on a date for the gathering because Matt needs to plan it for a day when he doesn't have any visitors staying at the farmhouse. When discussing Amy Roloff in scenes from Little People, Big World, Matt Roloff is blunt. Amy, she can cross that line from micromanager to dictator quicker than me, says Matt Roloff. Despite her good intentions, these two still seem to be brought to their worst sides, and viewers will witness more of this. Amy asserts that you can't have too many leaders and too many bosses. She isn't afraid to assert herself and take charge. That's just problematic because Matt Roloff feels the same way. As these two attempt to outdo one another, there will undoubtedly be a great deal of drama. No more today. What are you thinking about this gossip today? Let us know in the comments, and stay tuned by subscribing to our channel to get more updates like this. Thank you.